Welcome back to Introduction to Computer Science at SSFS. In past videos, we've looked at specific tools of Python, whether it was lists or variables or different kinds of loops. We've looked at each tool individually and seen how we can build programs from that. In this video, we're going to talk about a very different way of programming, kind of a different way of thinking, and that's called object-oriented programming. And the purpose of this video is just to give a little introduction as to what that means, and the next series of videos we'll talk about how to use object-oriented programming. So this will serve as a very brief introduction. So if you go and look on the web or the internet about what is object-oriented programming, you'll see words like classes. And in fact, in object-oriented programming, you will write files called classes. And those classes will serve as a blueprint for creating new objects. And whenever you use a class to create a new object, you're said to create an instance of that object. And you've seen a lot of this, for example, with turtle. Turtle is essentially just a class, and when you create a new turtle, you create an instance of the turtle object. Object-oriented programming is not procedural programming, which is what we've done up to this point. And in procedural programming, usually things get executed step by step, and programs are pretty self-contained. You write one file to solve one problem. So as we said before, object-oriented programming is going to be a new way of thinking about how we create programs. Now let's give a little example, because all of this is kind of abstract so far. So when people talk about how to describe object-oriented programming, they often use the example of a car, and that's a good place to start. And as you know, cars have certain characteristics, like the make and the model, for a Toyota Camry or a Lamborghini. They have a color. They also have a set number of doors, maybe 2 or 4. Well, cars can also do things. They can drive. Cars can speed up or slow down, and they can't stop. Those actions are common to all cars. It wouldn't be a car if it couldn't drive. So let's kind of put that into programming terms. Those characteristics are what we would call variables. So you might have a variable in our class definition of a car called number of doors or color. And the actions that a car can do are called methods. And methods is just a fancy term for a function. And you'll see as we start to build classes that methods have the same form as functions, but if it's used in a class, we call it a method. So in object-oriented programming, you first create a class or a blueprint of something you want to model. In this case, we might want to make a class of a car. And then in another program, we might make an instance of that car, and we would set it up to have certain properties, like it's going to be a blue car with 2 doors, and it will be again, a Toyota Camry. It's important to note that the class variables are unique to an instance of a class. So if I have a file and I create 2 cars, they each have their separate set of variables. One may be blue and one may be red. One might have 2 doors and the other might have 4. But all of those instances share the same methods, which means that even in both cars, both of them can drive, both can stop and slow down and speed up. As with most things, this will be a lot easier to see with an example. So in our next video, we'll set up a class that will model a library account.